Great. Thank you, Jordan. And I would also like to thank those that joined us today for part two of the SBA Small Business Certification for our certification series. As Jordan said, I'm Keli Krueger-Huhra, and I'm the director of the Illinois Apex Accelerator at the Champaign County EDC. And there's my contact information. Just to let you know a little bit about the Illinois Apex Accelerator, in case you're not familiar, we are under the management of the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. And that funding that we receive through the Department of Defense, the Champaign County Economic Development Corporation, and our partners at the University of Illinois, as you see in the red banner, we're able to provide our services at no fee. And we're basically trying to be the front door for those businesses that want to expand and become capable of pursuing and performing contracts with the Department of Defense, all other federal agencies, state and local government agencies as well, and potentially working as subcontractors with prime contractors. We're here to provide the education and training needed to do that. And we want you to participate with government agencies because we know that the stronger the supply base is for the government, the greater the competition and the higher quality costs, goods at lower cost for the taxpayer available to the government. On the left, you see just a listing of the services that we provide that support that mission. It's webinars is what we're doing here today, one-on-one counseling, SAM, the other requirements to do business with the government, and we also help you locate opportunities where those are with different teaching you market research. We've had some sessions on that. Market strategies, as well as capability statements to introduce your business to those potential agencies. And then what you see on the right are statistics about how successful the Apex Accelerators are working with Illinois businesses. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a lot to cover today. And again, I want to emphasize asking questions, and please put those in the chat and I'll address those. Hopefully we'll have time at the end. All right, so just a brief recap of what we talked about in phase one, which in the first session was just really why certification and how it might be helpful for your business. So at this point, we're going to just review with the understanding that having known what the programs are and finding out if they are applicable to you, that we're going to proceed with the logistics of being able then to pursue a certification. Just as a recap, you have the 8A Small Disadvantaged Business Certification available through the SBA. You have the Woman-Owned Small Business and the Economically Disadvantaged Woman-Owned Small Business. You have the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business, and you have the Historically Underutilized Business Zone. So you'll see here just a very brief introduction of what is required to perform to actually apply for these certifications. In general, you're going to find that the most specific requirement for all but the hub zone is that it's owned and operated by the individual or individuals that have those characteristics. In general, the business must be small, must be at least 51% owned by the eligible applicant or applicants. Business must be controlled by those eligible applicants or applicant, and they must also be considered economically disadvantaged if you're applying as an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business or as an 8A. So we're going to touch on then what is considered control. Control by the Code of Federal Regulations, which is listed there, is who's managing the business on a day-to-day basis, who's making those strategic decisions, the overall direction of the company, and who's making those day-to-day tactical, operational decisions. In general, who holds the highest position as an officer within the company, who's the highest compensated employee. Now, there is a little bit of flexibility on being the highest compensated, but in general, that is the rule. Who's controlling the finances? You will see in the application process, you're asked to provide a bank signature card. That bank signature card lets them know who is in control of that bank account, i.e., who can indebt the company. Outside employment by the applicant. Agreements with non-disadvantaged individuals. That's something that non-disadvantaged individuals having control outside of the applicant, i.e. a franchise agreement, that has to be scrutinized to make sure that that is not affecting the control of that individual that qualifies. And then some special circumstances, control by non-disadvantaged investors or board of directors, those that have major decision-making, influence, family relationships, non-disadvantaged family members that may potentially be controlling the business. Okay. What does it mean to be economically disadvantaged for the economically disadvantaged woman-owned and also the 8A? The personal net worth, assets minus liabilities, must be less than $850,000. On a 3-year average, income is less than $400,000 annually. The fair market value of all assets, $6.5 million or less. Okay. Social disadvantage in the 8A program does require you to write a narrative. Individuals are those who have been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias within American society because of their identities as members of group and without regard to their individual qualities. And those social disadvantages established through discrete incidents of bias, which negatively impacted your entry into or advancement in the business world. And there are narrative requirements described very well within the SBA program, either by a form or by a narrative writing of 2 of those incidents. Okay. For the women-owned small business and the economically disadvantaged women-owned small business, to note there is that not all NAICE codes, the North American Industry Classification System codes, qualify. Now, over the years, the list has grown exponentially, so there are many, many codes that qualify, but as where the others are just general, being a small business, the NAICE codes are provided that will qualify under the Women-Owned Small Business set-asides. Okay, so the first thing we would do would be to look at the list of NAICE codes through the SBA site and make sure the NAICE codes qualify. And how do they qualify? As woman-owned or economically disadvantaged woman-owned. So this is just some guidelines as a contracting officer about set-asides if a business is certified as a woman-owned small business, then they could be potentially sole sourced. And here are the restrictions that follow based on fair and reasonable price for that. Okay, to qualify as a woman-owned small business, business must meet the following requirements. Must be small, of course, as they all must be. 51% unconditionally and directly owned by, could be a woman, it could be women, and you must be U.S. citizens. Woman must commit the firm to the contracts and be able to hire and fire. Again, we're looking at the control aspect. Have the managerial experience required to run the business. So they're going to look at the resume to determine that. Woman must make the long-term decisions. Again, looking at that strategic and tactical policy making for the business. Control the budget and financial distributions. Woman must work full-time at the business during normal business hours. And again, that's something we have found a bit of flexibility on that. If you do have full-time work outside of your business, then there would need to be a discussion with the agency how you could do full-time in both your business and with an employer. Can be done, but you just have to realize that the agency wants you to be all in on your business. And there's no minimum amount of time for the business to be operational. Sometimes, and I put this Venn diagram on here because sometimes it does get a little bit confusing because there are 2 women-owned standings, the economically disadvantaged and the woman-owned. Just to be clear, the economically disadvantaged is a subset that you are considered a woman-owned if you are EDWSB. However, if you're woman-owned, unless you qualify for the disadvantage, the economic side of that, you're not an EDWSB. All right, so just to be somewhat clear on that. Okay, and the unique aspect of being veteran, besides being small, is the definition of what is veteran status. Active duty is defined by the Veterans Affairs. Active duty means full-time duty in the armed forces, other than active duty for training. Full-time duty as a commissioned officer of the regular or reserve corps, and military time has only training and or guard and reserve component time without active duty does not qualify for this program. Okay. The other one is the hub zone. Now, the unique requirements there are you must be owned and controlled by at least 51% U.S. citizens or a community development corporation. Principal office is located in a historically underutilized business zone, and 35% of the employees must reside in a hub zone. Okay, and those hub zone maps will be your friends. As you go through the application process, the 35%, each employee that qualifies, you will run a map for them. And in addition, for the principal office also being located in a hub zone. Okay, so that's just a brief overview. Where we're going to start is getting a unique entity ID through the system for award management. Everything starts here. You must have that UEI, the abbreviation for the unique entity ID. And we find that at the very beginning for the system for award management registration. So once you get your UEI, you create an entity registration for the business with that UEI, and you receive what's called a commercial and government entity code. Page is how that is known. You're going to gather the required documentation before beginning the application. Here are some hot links. When Jordan sends you this PowerPoint, you will be able to link right to these resources that we talk about today. And applying for certification as a woman-owned, economically disadvantaged woman-owned, hub zone, 8A, and service disabled veteran will require certain documents, and we will look at those. If your application is approved, you're going to receive a determination letter within approximately 90 days from the SBA. Okay, now again, it all starts with sam.gov. So in this diagram, you're going to see number 3, we're going to validate the entity. That's how we get our unique entity ID. Okay, so you're going to create an account to access SAM. That UEI, what does it prove? Why do you need a UEI? Basically, it looks at your physical address of your business, your legal business name, and your entity formation date. What I have listed here for you, and you'll see this as you go into the system, these are the documents that they will allow you to submit. If they don't find your business, or if they find you and any information is incorrect, you're going to be asked to give them documentation that supports how to correct that response that comes back. So when you go in to do your unique entity ID, it's going to ask you some questions. And the only reason they ask you those questions is to help you choose an option. So you see on the left-hand side what the screen looks like. If you haven't been in there, this is what you would expect to see once you get your own login. Choosing an option is how do you want to move forward registering in this system. And if you're looking for certification, you're always going to want to do all awards, and that will be the third column. Okay, so this is the screen that's going to show you if you have an entity that is found when you put your business name, your business address, and your start date in there. If it brings you back, here's what we found, and it's found, great. You go ahead and say, yes, it's found, and yes, it's correct. If something needs to change on it, or you're not found, this is where you're going to be providing them that list of documents that I just showed you. Utility bill, bank statement. Those are traditionally things if they have the correct name and correct address on them. The documentation from the Internal Revenue Service, as long as it matches what they're asking for, as you can see on the top, legal business name, address, start year in the same document. Find that document, upload it into the system, and once they return to you your unique entity ID, then you're ready to register the entity. Okay, once you are ready for your pre-registration, you're going to need your tax ID number, your business bank account, and your NAICS codes. And keep in mind that you must have a physical address. If you use a virtual address, you have to accompany it with a lease agreement, and no post office boxes are permitted. Okay. General information section. This is where you fill in information about the company if you have security clearances. If you are disadvantaged, we're going to see the actual process for certification. The small disadvantaged business is a self-certification. So in the SAM registration, you are declaring not only your structure, but your social economic categories. Now, again, you are not certified, but you're just declaring self-attestation. This is how your business is owned, for profit, veteran owned, whatever you qualify for there. This section is called Representations and Certifications, and this is where you indicate, if you were not aware, that you are self-certifying as a small disadvantaged business. Keeping in mind that while you are giving that attestation yourself, the 8A qualifications that we just went over, you must qualify for those, okay? That 8A is certified. This is the same requirements, but you're certifying yourself. Okay, that's where you find that. Now, this is a list of documents that you will need to have prepared once you have your unique entity ID, once you have your KH code from SAM. Now you're ready to go into the SBA system. So as you look at this, you will see across the top business structure, documents that you provide are directly related to the way your business is structured. So you'll see sole proprietorship, limited liability company, a partnership, or a corporation. So you follow down where these X's are. So for example, if you're an LLC, you're going to have an articles of organization. That's what you provided to the Secretary of State. You're going to have an operating agreement. And if any of these things, the articles of organization was required, an operating agreement was not, but is very key for the agency, the SBA in this case, to determine your control as a qualified applicant for the certification. So they will look at that closely, make sure that no one circumvents your control. If you don't have this document, see the Apex Accelerator, and we can give you a template to help you develop that document. Okay, so you'll go down and you'll see corporation has many documents. Corporate documents are required. It's a responsibility of being an S corp, a corporation. So you'll see articles of incorporation, bylaws, meeting minutes, shareholder information, stock certificates, ledger, etc. Those will all be required as a corporation. If you are not a corporation, then you're not responsible for having those documents available and uploading those in the system. And you'll see other ownership related documents are listed here. So across the board, if any of these do apply, again, they could have an impact on your eligibility for certification. You would be asked to provide those. Okay. Citizenship, they're going to ask you for documents that provide proof of citizenship, such as a passport, birth certificate, etc. Those are listed there. And this just pretty much reiterates what's on the chart with your limited liability requirements, etc. And then as a corporation, your corporate documents and a list of the other documents that you see on the chart, franchise agreements, etc. Okay, now let's take a look at the system itself. This system is new in the fall, October time period. The SBA took down a system that had different pieces to it because each application had its own. So the SBA took the responsibility to consolidate all of the programs, again, the 8A, the woman-owned, the veteran-owned, and the hub zone, and put them into one system. The reason they did that and to give you one portal for accessing the certifications is that they found many businesses qualify for more than one certification. So rather than providing the documents multiple times, this allows you to go into one portal and submit one application, have one analyst take a look at it and determine by your response in the certification how you can be certified in whatever ways you qualify for. So we'll look at the screen where you will be able to declare if you qualify for more than one, what do you qualify for? What do you want them to review your application to be submitted for? Okay, now we're going to talk about this in more detail. This is your opening screen, okay, which again down at the bottom does give you the opportunity to go in and get more detail, connect you to the SBA website and their additional information on any of these if you need that. So in looking at this opening screen, once you log in, get access to the system, it's going to ask you, what do you want to do? Okay, have an invitation code, and we'll talk about what that means, or just beginning because you're going to claim your business and you have your SAM.gov activated, it has to be active, entity registration and your cage code. Okay, now to start this process, you must be the owner or the qualifying individual. Okay, now this is where the next page you're going to go to is claiming your business. Okay, again, the qualifying owner must start this application process. So how do you start? You start with your unique entity ID, with your cage code, with your bank account number. And this is very important. This is the bank account number that you used in SAM because you're going to claim this and only one individual, only one qualified owner is going to be able to claim this business. So to verify that it is you, they're going to match up this bank account number that you enter in their portal with the bank account number that you put in your SAM entity registration. Okay, and they'll have to match to move this forward. And then your tax ID number. Okay, now click Find. Here's where you need to understand the different roles in the certification process, in the business application process. Okay, so you have business user roles. As a qualified owner, you own and control the business, and you're going to lead this application effort. You can, at a point in the application, assign a delegate. So if you have someone in mind that you trust to do this for you, enter the basic information about the business, you can assign what they call a delegate to do that for you. Okay. Now, the other individual that you see on here that will be involved in the application process is a contributor. And we'll look at what a contributor is. But basically, this is someone that will be invited in. Actually, both roles are invited, but the contributor is invited because they have either 20% or greater ownership in the company with you, or they have a significant role as a decision maker. So they're going to be asked to provide information on what their part in the business is, as well as your part as the qualifying owner. So you have the qualifying owner, the delegate, which would be somebody assigned to do the middle part of the application, the data entry there, or the contributor, which will be mandatory to be involved because of their involvement in the business. Okay, so you have the initiating process, again, must be done by the qualifying owner. Core processes, which a delegate would be able to do for you. And then the closing process must be done by the qualifying owner, basically confirming that all the information that was entered if a delegate was entering it in the core processes, confirmed and reviewed and signed and submitted by the qualified owner. Okay, so if you do assign a delegate to help you with this process, here you see the intersection. You see the initiating process done by the qualified owner, those core processes, which is business information, ownership details. If you've been in a program previously with the SBA, these are things that could be done for you. And then stepping again back to the qualified owner, any contingencies, the closing process must be done So you've got a before, a middle, and an end, and the before and the end initiating process must be done by the qualified owner. Now, the contributor. The contributor, again, gets an invitation. So you go back to that screen where there was an invitation code. They'll be sent a code, and then they log into the system and they do their part. Their questionnaires and documents will be submitted into the application by them by invitation. Okay, so now we're going to claim the business. So claiming the business, confirming the business type, we should have the information that we submitted that came up from our SAM entity populating on the screen. Okay, and then we're going to go to next. Now, this is where we choose. This is where we say what we intend to have the analyst that receives the application and the documentation. What do we want them to see if we're qualified for, to certify us for? There's the 8A, the economically disadvantaged, veteran-owned, women-owned, hubs-owned, and service-disabled veteran. So marking all boxes that you qualify for. Okay, this is where you would assign a delegate. Back to the Venn diagram. If you choose to have one do the business information section, you can say, yes, I'm going to assign a delegate for this. Okay, let's assume we're not. Let's assume we're moving forward with the application ourselves. This is what you're going to see. So based on what you told the system when you were back here, you said, I want to apply as an 8A, I want to apply as a woman-owned, and I'm in a hub zone. Okay, whatever you checked, this screen is going to come back and say, okay, based on that, here are the sections that you are going to be providing to in the application to the SBA. Okay, so you would go through each of these sections. You see initially they're not started. As they're completed, they will go to completed. So should you have to walk away from the application, you'll see what's been done. In the case of a woman-owned small business, if by chance you have been through a third-party certifier, there are 4 that the SBA has agreements with. If one of those 4, you see the one on the screen that is probably most likely to be a third-party certifier in this area, and that's the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. We refer to that as WBENC. And if WBENC had certified you in their third-party public-private partnership, then the SBA would accept a portion of their application to have already been done, the due diligence done by that agency, and that would shortcut your application with the SBA. And that's why they're asking that question. Okay, now here's where you're going to start once you've filled out the individual questionnaire, assigned any delegates that you would have assigned to do the upload of the information. Here's where you start entering those documents that were required on that checklist. Minutes, for example, if you have a fictional name certificate, those other things, proof of citizenship, etc. This is where you're going to be uploading. You'll see on the right-hand side the upload button, and you'll be able to see where the documents are coming in. If you do have contributors, again, someone that owns at least 20% of your firm, you have officers, directors, board members, managers, partners that have significant influence in the business, they're going to be sent an invitation code to fill out their information as well and do their upload any documents that are required from their cards. Okay, and here we see owners. There were other owners, Jane and Joe in this case. They have an invitation sent to them. Now, in this case, it hasn't been sent yet, so that would be next in the process to send those applications. Now, the application will not be reviewed until anyone that has been sent a requirement to complete their information until they have completed their information. Until their information goes into the application itself, it cannot be submitted. Okay. here are some resources. The SBA, in putting out their new consolidated portal, has done a lot, has provided a lot of good information, resources for the certification process. So here is a link to the portal itself, the one that we just went through the screenshots for. They have a great knowledge base, which has a lot of questions answered in there with different resources, different publications that they have in there. Applicants' ownership and control, any of the specific documents that we see on that chart, and an application preview, which is basically what we just went through to show you what those screenshots look like and get you comfortable with the system itself. So they're really good resources. So I just that's going to complete the subject for today. I just wanted to let you know that on February 3rd, or I'm sorry, on February 18th, the third part of our series is going to be the State of Illinois Business Enterprise Program and the Veteran Business Program through this state agency, this Commission on Equity and Inclusion. We're going to go through the process of that certification. And then on March 20th, we're going to have the part 4 of the series specific to the U.S. Department of Transportation Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. So we'll be discussing that unique certification and how we work that is acceptable for horizontal construction on roadways. Oh, and I do want to highlight too that on March 11th and 12th, we will be hosting as the Illinois Apex Accelerators will combine our resources. So the 11 centers will meet in Forest Park, Illinois. We'll have agencies and prime contractors represented, and we will be hosting this government contracting summit with educational events as well as matchmaking, reverse matchmaking, presentations by businesses like yours to connect with the agencies, and then also some traditional matchmaking by the agencies and primes to help you understand how they want to do business with you. Okay, and at this point, I am going to turn it over to Jordan for questions. I'm going to put my contact information up there and take your questions if we have any.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. We have one question, but there's a lot of interest in it, so I'll go ahead and read it out loud so we can get it answered. It says, with the proposed aggressive cuts in the federal budget, how do you see this will affect small and minority business communities, especially if programs that support their businesses discontinue being funded?
That's a great question, and one that I've seen a lot of information on recently. So there is, as Jordan said, a lot of interest. Here's what I would say. Now, this discussion being SBA, and we can talk a little bit about the state of Illinois, but particularly on the federal side, the small business goals, the 23% of small business participation in the federal marketplace is a statutory requirement. So in other words, that is congressionally mandated. Now, the 23% is the 5% for 8A, 5% for women-owned, 3% for hub zones, and 5% for service-disabled veterans. It is a minimum. The federal government, the agencies can decide to increase that, and we saw that in the last administration where the small disadvantaged business goal was raised from 5% to, in 2025, 15%. That was not done statutorily, that was done through the executive order. Because this is a statute, it will likely not change, cannot change unless Congress would change that minimum floor. Now, it is likely that 15% small disadvantaged business, which was an executive order, will return to the 5%, but it will never, the small business participation will not go under 23% unless Congress decides to change that, because that is statutory.
All right, thank you. I'm assuming, oh,
sure. No, that's okay. I
I'm
was going to say
assuming
if
you may
that's not,
have some follow-up to that.
yeah, I was going to say, please follow up, if you want more information on that.
Yeah, and while we're waiting to see if we have any other questions come in, I will say, our services here at the Apex Accelerator are offered at no cost and they're totally confidential. So if there's ever anything you want to speak with Kelly about or work through one of these processes directly one-on-one with her, you can always register as a client, to work with Kelly or anyone on our SBDC side if you need help from them as well. I do know, I believe we got a handful of attendees from outside the Champaign-Urbana area, which is totally fine. We can help with anyone here in the state of Illinois. We can also direct you if there's an Apex Accelerator closer to you geographically and you'd like to meet with them. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, I know we're we gave you guys a bunch of your time back, but we don't have any other questions coming in. Just a bunch of thank yous, Kelly, for your answer to that and clearing up some, uh, misinformation that's out there and, people get worried and concerned. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. Just a reminder, because I know we did have some people hop on after my little spiel at the beginning, you will get the follow-up to this. So if you missed something at the beginning, you will have access to go back and revisit that. And you'll also have a PDF version of Kelly's PowerPoint so you can see all those live links that are throughout the presentation.
Absolutely. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you and for participating today. And if you would like more information, if you'd like to have some one-on-one assistance in going through the SBA certification process, please contact me. I'd be happy to go through that with you. Or any other government contracting questions or assistance that I can provide, please let me know.
All righty, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you.